This is the Dallas Morning News.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into SportsDay Insider presented by the Dallas Morning News. I am Kevin Sherrington, joined by my pals Evan Grant, Mike Curtis. Mike's on to talk with us today. We're not going to be able to tell you how the Mavericks did in the draft Tuesday night as we're taping this on Tuesday morning, but we can talk about this just under the wire. They get a head coach in, Mike. I like to feel like because I wrote that column saying that they needed to name a head coach before the draft, they looked at each other and said, you know what? He's right. Let's go ahead and name Dusty May as our head coach. I'm not sure that's exactly what happened, but that's the way I'm going to look at it anyway. So what were your thoughts on the naming of May, and were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I think I was a little bit surprised just because all the reporting around the Mavericks coaching search and coaching hires suggested that they were going to go with a assistant coach who had been proven, climbing up the ranks, watching the job firsthand at the front of a bench. Someone like a Micah Nori and Royal Ivy. Tony Dobbins was also considered, I think. But I think when it comes to like Dusty May, if you want to go get someone from the college ranks, that's probably the best you're going to get, especially with him coming off a national championship. You saw what he did with that Florida Atlantic team, got them all the way to the Final Four in 2023. So he has a proven track record as a college coach, but I think we all know, and there's a small sample size of college coaches that make the jump to the NBA, but they typically don't work out well. The last person to do it was John Beilein, and he didn't last mid-season through his first season with the Cavaliers because it was
he made a beeline to the couch. That was a line I thought about getting in, and I let that one go. Probably should have let that go just then, but anyway. Yeah, he didn't last. 54 games, 14-40 when he left the Cavaliers. That was a bad deal. And I'm with you. And this is certainly the kind of thing that can be dangerous to do this. And it is a little departure from Masai Ujiri's track record, where in Toronto he hired two longtime assistants as head coaches there. So I would like to find out what was the difference this time. I mean, I do think that obviously Dusty May did a great job in college, both at Florida and getting them to the Final Four, which is pretty remarkable. And then, of course, doing what he did in Michigan. I think there was a couple of things at play here. One, what he did in the transfer portal there at Michigan in his last year, bringing in guys who were, nice big players, but had really not done a lot. And certainly not, Mara. He had not done anything at UCLA, right? And then he comes in and he's terrific. He kind of reminds people of Bart Gasol, and he does have some limitations probably, and we'll have them going forward. But not only does he do that and is impressive in doing that, I think we have to ask the question now, after that hire, does this mean that there's three guys that he brought in, and all three of them are considered potential lottery picks? And one of them, the guy I just mentioned. Do you think there's a possibility now that one of those guys ends up being a Maverick?
I think it's definitely a possibility, and I think it's more of a possibility if they choose to trade down. I know we've heard a lot of reporting just about their intentions to either trade up or trade down. I think it's more likely they trade down from number 9, especially depending on who's available by the time they're on the clock. If they're in a position where they see a player and they're not as fascinated with, or they're not intrigued by, and I know they need a guard. And I'm still, even though we're on the day of the draft, I'm still gonna reiterate the fact that they need help in the ball handling department. Somebody who can create, get their own shot, get teammates involved. We don't know how long Kyrie Irving is going to be a part of this team. Does he even want to play for a college coach? So I still think they need their long-term solution at point guard. But I think it's definitely a possibility they could take one of those Michigan guys, especially if they trade down the board. You look at a guy like Axel Lindeborg. It's funny, NBA Draft Day media was yesterday. He was asked about just the possibility of he was asked about his thoughts about May getting the job with the Mavericks, and he said, "I know he better pick me up, or I'm going to block him." So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was pretty funny. But I think the Michigan guys, he has a lot of insight on a lot of these guys up and down the board, so he knows which teams are talking to who and where they could possibly land. So I definitely think it's possible.
Well, so I just said we weren't going to talk about the draft, and then I asked you that question. Okay, sorry about that, but we had to go on record a little bit here what might happen. So let me ask you this then: is it a possibility that here with and you bring up a great point about Kyrie Irving? Does he want to play for a guy who's never coached in the NBA? I'm not saying he wouldn't, but it's a legitimate question. Does that tend to bring us back to thinking that the Mavericks are thinking about a rebuild here than the possibility of playing right now? Does this kind of maybe give more weight to that side of it?
It's possible. You look at the three veterans they have that they're reportedly shopping. Klay Thompson, obviously, we heard from him right after the final game of the season. He was unsure if he was going to be in a Mavericks uniform next season. Um, we know he has 1 year left on his deal, so that's an asset, especially for a team like Miami who's looking for shooters right now. So Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford, he's been shopped, I want to say, for the last 2 seasons, specifically at the trade deadline. I know Indiana had a lot of interest in him. And then you look at a guy like PJ Washington, who signed an extension last summer. Didn't play as well as he played last year, dealt with a lot of injuries to his ankles this year. So any three of those guys could be on the market. Or you may want to sell high on Najee Marshall while you can. He's coming off the best year of his career. He played well with Cooper, but stylistically, I don't know if that's a long term fit. You want as many guys who can shoot the ball as you can when you putting a team around Cooper Flagg, and that's not necessarily Najee's skill set. He likes to get to the paint, get that floater up, hustle plays. So it's possible that any of these veterans could be on the move, and this could be a full rebuild. But I think you at least have to see what you're going to get with Kyrie and Cooper on the floor at the same time, whether that's using it as a trial period for the first half of the season, then seeing what happens at the trade deadline. But I think they want to see that at least.
I think if you're going to commit to a first time NBA coach and one who has no NBA experience at all, the most likely route is probably a full rebuild around, a 20-year-old, however old Cooper Flagg is on this date, player. And I mean, history is kind of littered, right, with the veterans who look at first time coaches, particularly those guys, whether it's what we're watching right now with the San Francisco Giants and MLB or what we've watched in the NBA before.
Mhm.
Guys don't give credibility to college coaches. And if you want your message to get across, you're probably going to have to do some room cleaning.
Yeah, Mike, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you about that specifically because the other name supposedly out there was John Shire of Duke, who was Cooper's old coach, um, and other two. I get the attraction to. I mean, I'm not saying that John Shire wouldn't do a good job, but he hasn't really done it with Duke yet, right?
Mhm.
And what Dusty May did at Michigan was they hadn't won a title since 1989. Duke's won
Yeah.
like what 12 titles since then. I don't know, but the fact that he done that and that he rebuilt that so quickly. That last year, Juwan Howard was there. They won 8 games. So
Hmm.
this is a guy who comes in and bang, he fixes things. So I get that. So I don't really understand why that John Shire would have been the first option unless you just had these conversations with Cooper Flagg and he just went on and on and on about him, right? I mean, and that doesn't really seem to
Yeah.
fit to me with what Masai Ujiri does either. And unless in the conversations he's had with Cooper, he said that's one of the reasons why Jason Kidd's not here anymore. I mean, I don't really know. There's so much we need to ask about all this, and
Mhm.
we will ask these things, shortly. But there's so much we need to know about what are his expectations, and I hope that he goes further than what we expect to win because that's not going to do it. We
Yeah.
need to know what are you thinking about this, and I agree with you 100%. I'd like to see Kyrie Irving on the floor. There's always time to trade him at the trade deadline. If he's playing well, his value will probably go up than over what it is right now, because people do want to see if he's playing well. I do think there's potential there on this team if they get the right parts. I guess the next question I would ask you is, and we have not mentioned this either, and this is what I wrote today about Brad Stevens. There are you're right, lots of college coaches who did not work out, including Rick Pitino and John Calipari. So these are some guys who were some pretty big name coaches, right? But that was also from eras, and those were two big personality coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're in a different era now. If you look around the NBA and look at the coaches that are in the league now, how many big personalities are there? I mean, the only the old guys were throwbacks, and then I wouldn't even really call them throwbacks, were Steve Kerr, Eric Spoelstra. I mean, really, most of the rest of them were all young guys who were longtime assistants, but they're system guys. They're the people that we're seeing more in other sports as well, in which they're expected to carry out the what their metrics show, and this is what we do in this situation, and not so much what a guy would make, the decisions that are made on the floor by a guy who's just going by his guts and his instincts and what he likes to do. I do think this is a different time, and Brad Stevens is that kind of example. And I think this is the kind of guy they were going for, because certainly after what he did at Butler, getting them to the championship game 2 years in a row, which is a phenomenal job. He didn't win it all, but just getting there was something with Butler. And then he goes to the Celtics, and they had really gone through a down period, and he immediately turned them around. And he has turned around that organization and done a great job. Now, they didn't get, the Greek Freak, but and I know that they wanted him, and he goes to Miami in a blockbuster deal. So there's a lot of things working here, and I kind of like for you to kind of touch on all of those a little bit. But just first starting with the fact that, are we in an age now when in the NBA when the head coaches maybe just don't matter as much as they used to?
Yeah, I think coaches matter. I think coaching definitely matters. When you look at a guy like Mark Daigneault, you see what he was able to do with that OKC team. I think year by year, they got incrementally better. Obviously, it led them to winning the championship last season. It probably would have happened this year if they were healthy, going up against Wemby and the Spurs. But I think coaching definitely does matter. You look at a guy like Ime Udoka, who had that Celtics team in a position to where they were going to the Eastern Conference Finals. And obviously, he gets fired and goes to Houston. But then you got Joe Mazzulla, who was right under him, kind of learning the ropes, seeing how things were done. And he was the one to take them over the top. And obviously, they beat the Mavericks in 2024. So I think coaching does matter. I think it's interesting because we talk about Brad Stevens and we talk about Billy Donovan, and then the last person to win an NCAA title and also like make the jump, Larry Brown, 1988. I know a lot of people bring that example up, but it took Larry Brown 16 years and 5 teams before he was ultimately able to win a championship in the NBA. So sometimes these things take time, but a lot of times you don't have as much grace as coaches used to have back in the day. Coach would
no
get a
question
lot of
about
cracks.
that.
Yeah, coach would get a lot of cracks at the apple. Not today.
Yeah, they do. Well, and listen, let me just say this: Larry Brown's one of my all-time favorites. He was a nut, and he probably shouldn't be coaching college basketball, but Larry's just one of those kind of guys. And coaches back then were always, there was always a tug of war with stars and big name coaches. I don't know if we have those tug of wars anymore. I don't know that head coaches now and all these young guys who come up are having personality control type issues with their star players like they used to. In the NBA, the stars run the show, and I think that
but what happens, Kevin, if you've got a star if your lone star is 20 years old?
Well, I think in that case, that's a great question, Evan, because that's what I want to know. I want to know, what did Cooper Flagg have to say about all this? Was he consulted at all? Did they say to him, "Hey, listen, what do you think? What would you like in a head coach?" I don't think so. I don't think that Masai seems like that kind of guy. He seems like the kind of guy to me that I'm in charge of this show. I make the calls, and I think from what we heard from him in that one press conference was that I make the decisions here, and then they released that weird statement in which they said it was a mutual decision on Jason Kidd's part, and then Masai just said, "No, this was my call. This was not Jason's call." And so he let us know that he's in charge, which is fine. I don't mind that. I just feel like in this market, it makes people nervous because what happened with the last guy that was in charge of basketball operations and some of the decisions he made, one in particular. So I do think that this is it's just a bunch of things that we need to know, and we don't know yet about which way the Mavericks are heading. Like I said, and I wrote, I think that this hire has potential to work out just because of where we are in the NBA now and because of the kind of coach that Dusty May is and what he has done so far and his track record. I think it's impressive.
I think the other thing is that what is going to be the makeup of this team that we were just talking a minute ago, because if they've got a young guy who's got 1 year of college experience and 1 year of NBA experience, he may be more willing to listen to a coach than an established star. And if you clean house and move out all those other veterans, I think you've got much more of a chance of success for Dusty May's system and Dusty May's thoughts to permeate this team.
Well, I think it's exactly right, and that's what we'll see. I still think that this, and maybe this is a bad approach. I still think this team has the potential, if you get the right pieces around Cooper, to be competitive this year, because we'll see what he does with Kyrie Irving, because that's exactly what you were talking about a while ago, right, Mike? Is that who is Kyrie Irving when he's healthy is still one of the best point guards in the NBA. And so that gives you that, right? But they need more shooting around him. They need to, because he's not a great shooter yet. They need shooting around him to give him more spacing and allow them to do the things they need to do. But I do think there are other things to consider here, starting with the makeup of the West and the San Antonio Spurs and how big they are and about how good they're going to be and how difficult that is going to be to compete against them, not only them, but Oklahoma City, with the Rockets. I mean, just in this, within a 5-hour drive any direction, you got real problems. And maybe they decided that they can't compete at that level right now. I mean, you look at the Celtics, they just won a title 2 years ago, and they feel like they can't compete. That's why they were in the trade for Antetokounmpo. They were trying to get him, was because they didn't feel like they had enough to compete against the Knicks. And I think that's an overplay, if you ask me. I love what the Knicks did, and I love Jalen Brunson, but that felt a little bit like the Mavericks winning it all in 2011. It just kind of felt like we got experience and chemistry here, and we're gonna win with that. And I think that was I think that they're a really good team. I think it'd be really difficult for the Knicks to repeat as champs after that season, especially if Boston gets healthy again. And now that Antetokounmpo
don't ruin the Knicks high. Don't ruin their high, Kevin.
Well, it's all fun. I'm not going to say it's like the Rangers winning it all in 2023.
Listen.
That was really freakish.
I have it under good authority that Mariska Hargitay is a big listener to this podcast, and I do not want to bring her down right now.
Who knew that she was such a Knicks fan? Holy cow! I mean,
she's been a Knicks fan for several years. She and Jalen Brunson are pals.
Are they really?
Yeah,
man. You think that Jalen Brunson's glad that the Mavericks let him walk?
What?
You think that Jalen Brunson is glad that the Mavericks let him walk?
Yes, I believe so.
Considering how everything played out, I think he's okay.
Yeah, I think he's just fine. It's the best thing in the world ever happened to him that the Mavericks screwed that all up, starting with the fact that they didn't give him a 5-year deal to start this whole stupid career. But anyway, we'll move on from that.
And listen, if Chalamet is listening, I don't really care if we're upsetting him. So take that, Chalamet.
Oh, you just say that because you could probably whip Timothy Chalamet. That's all.
I don't think I could. I'm an old man,
no.
Kevin.
Oh, I give you. I think you could. You got that old man strength. You could get down there, get in the ground with him, get in the dirt with him. That'd be great. That'd be a great fight. I'd love
Every
to see
day, I
that.
just do something that reminds me, like I should be in that Progressive commercial.
In the progressive commercial, those are young people who are acting like old people. You're an old person acting like an
Acting
old
like an
person.
old person.
That's
Yes.
right. There's no question. All right, Mike, that's going to do it, man. I appreciate you coming on with us. We'd love to have you come back next week and talk about how everything actually worked out in the draft. We'll if you got the time, we'll have you back and talk about all that. It'll be fun.
This is kind of a
Yeah,
cliffhanger. Yes.
Yeah,
no
Mike,
problem.
yeah.
I will
I
leave y'all with this.
think
I know we were talking about what did Cooper think about the hiring? Was he consulted or not? I reached out to somebody close to him yesterday after the news was reported, and they pretty much said they're excited. They've heard nothing but great things about Dusty, not just as a basketball coach, but as a person. From everything he's been told, he's high character, very driven, and those are the only types of people that they want around Cooper. So
Well, that's good to know. It's good to know. I don't, well, just since you got in a PS, I'll add a PPS. Is that I'm still not sure how Cooper felt about being asked to be the point guard to start the season, to start his
yeah,
NBA career. And I wonder if there, just from some of the comments he made, they didn't sound like it was great. Like, okay, in the long run, maybe this worked out for me. And maybe in the long run, it did work out for him. But Jason also put him in a tough position. Just breaking
yeah,
into the league, it's like, all right, here you go, bring the ball up and run the offense for us. That was a lot to ask a kid who was the number one pick. Puts a lot of pressure on him right away, and he, obviously responded, but he really wasn't comfortable until they moved him off the ball,
yeah,
and that's when things really picked up for him and he started rolling. So I don't know that he had any kind of lingering issues with that at all. He might not have had any, for all I know. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing for a coach to make hard decisions for a guy or to ask him to do things. I just thought that was a little much. But anyway, we'll see. All right, Mike. Thanks, man.
Mike, thanks for being here.
All right, there goes Mike. And as I said, we'll have more stuff for you next week about the draft and how the Mavericks did. And let's hope they did well. That would be good. We need some good stuff to be reporting about these teams, Evan. Especially the team you cover, which I was just looking back at their record this season. The game by game record, and it's just full of win 2 games, lose 2 games, win 3, lose 1, lose 4, win 2. There's a 5-game win streak in there, and that was at the end of May, 1st of June.
Yeah.
And that was like, wow. That was the wow moment for the Rangers this year.
So far, yeah. And listen, I mean, long win streaks aren't necessarily the mark of a great team. It's just extended good play where it's winning series after series.
Sure.
I will say this, Kevin. It's funny you bring this up because I just this morning looked something up on Baseball Reference because as we get closer and closer to the deadline, I also think that Ray Davis's perspective is not going to be, I just want to make the postseason. I think his perspective is going to be either we have a chance to do something this postseason, or otherwise either stand pat or trim. And so I wanted to go back and look and see if the Rangers have at any point in time played good enough baseball, just in terms of wins and losses, to win a World Series. And to do that, you've got to go 13-9 over a 22-game stretch. It's the worst you could do to win a World Series.
Oh, if you're in the playoffs.
Right.
Okay.
And they right now are in their first 13-9 22-game stretch with last night's win. Yeah. So I think it's a really good point. Like, how good can this team be? Can they be good enough to make a deep run in the playoffs? And it's just hard to really get that impression,
It is hard to get that impression for a number of reasons. Obviously, we've written about this, and you've written about it ad nauseum about the inability to get the offense going. I've had more, I wouldn't say faith in the offense, but more interest that is a possibility simply because you're getting offense from guys you didn't get it from in the last 2 years. And
Absolutely.
and so you got that, and that is something. And now Wyatt Langford has come back and finally is hitting the ball like he should, and like you would expect him to do. And so that's one piece of it. Let me ask you this, before, and obviously I'm not going to skip over the fact that the pitching is maybe the real issue going forward now, as you wrote about Jack Leiter and his ankle problems and how long he's going to be out. But before we go there, I wanted to just talk about the offense a little bit, because when you look at teams and you consider whether they are, title contenders, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. If we go back to, of course, to when the Rangers won the World Series, they had a superstar in Corey Seager. They had a really, really good player in Marcus Semien, um, and everybody else was kind of, obviously, it was, as we look back now, playing over their heads, like Adolis Garcia, and certainly he was a huge part of that postseason run of that season. So when you look at a roster makeup, and you look at the way that this lineup is right now, you've got two All-Star caliber players in Zeke Durant and Josh Young, who by the way, Zeke is what, fourth in the All-Star voting right now, I think.
No, second.
So, I'm sorry, second, but he's way behind Ernie Clement of
Right, but
Toronto.
he should, barring some kind of weird surge over the next day or so, he should go to the next round, which is hugely important because only the
Yeah,
top two guys go to the next round.
and it resets. The voting resets after the first
Right,
round, right?
correct.
Yeah. So, and I don't think Josh Young's really got a shot. Do you?
I think he was fourth in the last round in the last update, and I don't think he can make up the difference. I didn't see the totals from how far back he was yesterday.
But he's just, yeah. The difference is here is that there's been really good play by third baseman this year.
Yeah, there's been a real the hard part for Josh, the unfortunate part for Josh is that um he's got real competition among third basemen. It's a really good third base class.
Yeah. So you've got those two, and for some reason, Jock Peterson has worked his way into like sixth place or whatever among the designated hitters.
Yeah.
Jock's playing better, but the fact that he's getting votes is just phenomenal to me. And then of course Corey Seager, because he's Corey Seager, he has some votes at shortstop. But those are the only position players in the top 10 in any position, and so I'm just wondering, Evan, what do you think that they have to have here? I mean, obviously Corey Seager has to play at the level that has nearly got him in conversation about being a Hall of Famer. He has to come back at that level. Wyatt Langford has to play at the way he's been playing. He doesn't have to play at the level he's been playing the last week and a half, but he's got to play something close to that. And then if Josh and Zeke continue to play the way they have so far this season, are those four players enough to carry them in the second half of the season, or do they still need more from Jake Berger, from whoever's going to end up playing in the outfield, Brandon Nimmo at catcher? Do they still need to have a bigger jump in production from those people?
Well, I mean, listen, I do think that Jake, as inconsistent as Jake has been at times, I do think he's on a nice run and an elongate and something of a longer run. And he and I talked briefly yesterday about um, I think he's made a significant fix to his swing in that he's not stepping into the bucket and pulling off of balls nearly as bad as he was last year and the first month of this year. And if you look at OPS plus, and that is all adjusted for league averages and everything, Berger's 18% higher than league average. Nimmo is 20% higher than league average. Duran, 20%. Peterson, 20%. Langford is now, now with this hot 12-game stretch, he's 24%. And so, the Rangers, it's weird. If you look at OPS plus, which is what more front offices look at than just straight OPS, the Rangers are a top 10 MLB offense. If you look at runs scored, they're a bottom 10 offense. it's a very weird, strange diversion from one stat that is all about actual production and another stat that's about projected production, really. And so they still don't know what they have. But look, when you factor in the fact that Wyatt is now hitting the ball the way he is, and add the guys who seem to have made real strides. The other thing, if you look at Berger, Young, and Duran, and you look at their strikeout to walk rates, they have really improved the walks and brought down the strikeouts. That's a huge indicator for long term success. Now, if you bring a healthy Corey Seager back into this and he performs at his career norms, he doesn't need to go off. If he performs at his career norms over the final 3 months of the season, you've got a really formidable offense. Um, is that enough to push them into the postseason and give them a real shot? I don't know. It's just, I think it keeps coming back to what we opened the segment with is I need to see some degree. I think everybody needs to see some degree of extended good on-field results. It's just hard to make a real call on this team without that.
So then let me ask you this, because you brought up Ray Davis's name, and obviously a decision has to be
You
made.
brought up Ray Davis's name. You now have the Adelsons apparently as a far more involved and invested ownership group than Ray Davis.
They're willing to spend money. We know that.
Yeah.
They're spending money left and right, and Ray's not doing that, not anymore. And so, and look, I don't necessarily blame him. The team has had in the last 10 years has had one winning season. So it's hard to say that this is a team you should bet on. But how much of it should be considered what the labor situation will be next year? Because if you don't go all in now, well, there's a chance that there's no season next year. I don't know. I don't know how big a chance of that, but there's certainly a chance of that. So then you go 2 years in this market without having anything to build on going in after that. And how hard will that be to get fans to buy in once they finally do resolve the labor situation? If A, you went in the tank this year, and B, you didn't play next year. I really think that would do damage to this market. I mean, look, a labor stoppage is going to do damage across the board. It'd be the worst thing that could happen to baseball if it happens. But I just feel like the owners, and especially Ray Davis being one of them, probably a hardliner, wanted to say we're going to get a salary cap because the public's for it now. This is our opportunity to really go all in for it, and we're going to do that. So I see all that happening, and shouldn't Ray, because of that though, because you don't have to pay people if they're locked out. Shouldn't you go all in right now? Shouldn't that be Ray's attitude? If you just get a little bit of a boost here, shouldn't he say, "Okay, go ahead, go for it"?
I think yes, that should be, but I also think Ray's mindset is worst case scenarios. I think he's always thinking about worst case scenarios, and so I hate to say it's a negative mindset, but I think that factors in. And so he's thinking, well, if I don't make money next year, I better make all the money that I possibly can this year and save costs wherever possible. I don't know. I do feel like you need to. There's a level of disenfranchisement for fans here that I haven't seen in a long time. Now, maybe I'm judging on what I see on social media, and that's really a bad decision on my part. But we've heard boos at Globe Life Field in the last homestand. I don't know that I didn't see huge crowds at Globe Life Field. Not that there were bad crowds, but I didn't see huge crowds at Globe Life Field on the last homestand. And if you do, if you do not do anything, and if you have another non-winning season, and then you go into a lockout, I mean, it may do, I don't want to say irreparable damage to the franchise, but certainly long-term damage to the franchise.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. I do think that fans have moved into that era now. It's a little bit more now, and maybe it is because of social media. You do feel people are more impatient. They want more. They're demanding more. And in this market, you certainly see the mismanagement of what's happened. Right from the Mavericks, Cowboys have been mismanaged now for 30 years. Really the only franchise that seems to be doing a good job from the top down is the Stars. So I do think this is some really big decisions here to make. It's not just you just can't say, well, are we going to be good enough to win or not? Oh, we're not. Okay, then let's blow it up. And then of course everybody goes, right? Corey Seager goes, Jacob DeGrom goes, Nathan Eovaldi goes, and Lord knows what else. I think when we've talked about that before, we said that the possibility of guys like Josh Young would go. I would feel like now, after what Josh has been doing, that he deserves another contract. I think at his age and what he's done, I think that I don't even know what I'm really not even sure what is Josh's contract situation right now.
He will be, let's see, 23. So this was his first year arbitration. He'll be second year arbitration eligible next year.
Yeah, I think they should go out and get in front of that and make a deal with him if he continues to play.
They're not going to make a deal right now. I mean, and unless it's a completely club friendly deal, I just don't see Ray being willing to make any deals because he thinks the economic system is going to have significant changes, and so he wants to base any contracts that he does on what he thinks the future market's going to be. And I don't know if that's delusional, but I don't think it's going to lead to any contracts.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's just a lot. To look at the two sides of this, we're talking about whether are they a playoff team or are they a team that's going to get blown up. That's a pretty divergent viewpoint
Yeah.
of what's going to happen here for them going forward. And and I got to say, I'm not sure either. I don't know. I from just watching it and not wanting to see them go in the tank and have to start all over again. That no one wants to watch that. I mean, fans can get mad all they want to about what's going on. You do that, and Lord knows when you come back, because there are no guarantees. It's not like there's people down on the farm waiting to come up. As you just talked about with the pitching, if Jack Leiter's going to be out a significant time now, you bring up Josh Corniel, and his ERA was 6.40. In the minor leagues, something like that.
In the minor leagues this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that right now is the big story, Kevin. And the thing that this team's got, the offense has been a little bit more encouraging, but what has gone unsaid, mostly because nobody wanted to speak it into existence all year, is that there's no depth for the starting rotation. And the Rangers thought that their starting rotation was their best asset going into the year, but only when they're healthy. Jose Corniel has one game of major league experience. The Rangers signed Marco Gonzalez to a minor league deal last year. He's been a serviceable major league pitcher, but not since 2021. Didn't pitch last year at all because of injuries and was, had a 7 ERA at AAA with the San Diego organization this year. There are other top prospects, David Davalillo and Leandro Lopez and Winston Santos have all gone backwards this year. And then their first line of defense for starting rotation depth was so good as a reliever that he's their most valuable player right now. And Jacob Latz, you can't possibly move him into the rotation. So if Jack Leiter is out for a significant amount of time, and I lean right now, the fact that he was not with the club yesterday and was seeing doctors and getting further evaluation, I expect that, by the time this comes out, we'll have a better idea. But I think the Rangers better be prepared for the long term. Now, on the horizon, potentially Jordan Montgomery could be back in a month. But so at the best case scenario, you're talking about having to navigate the next month with an unproven number 5 starter, a number 4 with no number 5 starter, with a number 4 starter who seems to pitch best when he's got an opener in front of him, and no potential fill-ins if you have any other injuries, and you've got a 35-year-old Nathan Eovaldi and a 38-year-old Jacob deGrom, neither one of whom has 200 inning seasons in their recent past. So it's a real tightrope to walk. And then you add in the fact that this team is playing 15 consecutive games right now without a day off, and the calculus and the build up and the pressure that mounts on the bullpen can really have a debilitating effect on the bullpen if these starters don't go long. And then you've got an even bigger problem mushrooming up.
True that. Hey, I never really understood the whole concept of an opener. Is it just getting you past the meat of the lineup the first time around, and then you break in with like the fifth, sixth, and seventh hitters or worse?
I think in particular, and it hasn't. And this is the weird thing about the rocker thing, right? In the past, the Rangers have done it when a team was starting a top third of the lineup that was really heavily left-handed because he struggles with lefties. But both Colorado and Miami had the meat of their order was left-handed too, and he came in and faced them, and he just absolutely dominated. So the idea would be, yeah, you want your pitcher to maybe get through. You're talking about most of the times pitchers who can get through the lineup twice. So if you can avoid that first three and really start with your first hitter being the number 4, number 5 hitter, and that's how your lineup is settled, it may get you through the 6th inning. Now, is it any different than a starter going 5 and then having to go to the bullpen for the 6th? I don't know. But in Rocker's case, the first time out, he went 7 2/3 innings.
Yeah.
This time he went 5 and had a career high 9 strikeouts. And, he could have gone back out there for the 7th. He could have, I think. He only was like 76 pitches. But the last inning that he worked, he gave up a couple of really hard hit balls. And so I think the Rangers also felt with Sandy Alcantara going on Tuesday and Yuri Perez going for the Marlins on Wednesday, they really needed to make sure they won that game on Monday to have a chance to win the series.
Well, let me ask you this, because whenever I've talked to Rocker, it's like, boy, it's like pulling teeth. I would have to feel like if you're a former number 1 pick with a resume that he had in college, and if you've got that alpha mindset as a starter, you don't like coming, because first of all, you don't get credit as a start. It's not a start, and so I have to feel like he doesn't like it. What do you think he thinks about it?
I don't have a read on it, and I asked him every question last night other than like, do you like this straight up, do you like this arrangement? I asked him if he had theories on why he's successful with this. I asked him if it changes how he approaches things, and I just don't know. I mean, I didn't end up using a quote from Rocker in my story this morning just because I don't really feel like it added any insight, and I think he's really guarded with the media. And so it's hard for me to get a read on exactly what Kumar is thinking. All I know is that the results suggest that whether he likes it or not, the Rangers are going to try this more often.
Yeah, I mean, it is working for whatever reason. I do think you have to think about, though, long term, how he feels about that kind of stuff, because you don't want to you don't want to make him mad. I know that sounds stupid to say that, but he's a hard guy to read. Boy, I just had the most difficult time with him. Because hard time reading on the field. It's like in spring training when he wasn't paying any attention to anybody who was on base, and they're just running around the bases on him. So anyway, all right.
Yeah,
Well,
it again. I don't think that you or I are alone. I think that there are lots of people who feel that there's really something special, but I think he's slow to give trust, slow to let people in, and I think it makes it difficult for people to get a read on him. But there's look, in a lot of ways right now, he's pitching with his slider and his slider alone, and he's a serviceable big league pitcher.
yeah, it's a really good pitch. He needs a couple more. All right, that's going to do it for our podcast this week. We appreciate you coming on board with us. So we'll be back next week.
We have one other thing we have to talk about.
You'd love to do this. You'd love to let me start the closer, and then you come in and say, well, wait a minute. And we say something else. What is that?
Well, there's a nationally televised golf match in Dallas this week.
It's not nationally televised. Lord help us if it is, because that would be awful.
I'm going to film the whole thing and put it on my nationally YouTube channel so that everybody can watch.
Evan has challenged me to a golf match at Stevens Park.
I don't think I've challenged you.
Oh, yeah, you challenged
with you to take me out, to be patient enough with me on the golf course.
You threw down the gauntlet like Tim did. Tim Calishaw once challenged me and said, I can beat you with 2 clubs. I think it was a 5-iron and a putter. And he did. He did beat me with a 5-iron and a putter.
Why would he do that? Tim, come on the podcast and explain why you had to throw that challenge down.
Do you have to ask that question? I don't think anybody should have to ask that question if they don't.
I just want to spend a day walking beautiful Stevens Park with my pal Kevin Sherrington.
Oh, that'd be nice. I think we're not going to be walking. We're going to
we will be walking.
We'll be in a golf cart. We're not walking out there. I'm too old for that, especially in this heat. We'll probably. I think the chances. I think Debbie is already checking my insurance right now just to make sure in case I keel over.
We're playing early. It won't be that hot.
Okay. All right. I'm pretty good with the heat, but you never can tell.
But Kevin and I,
I'm 70 now.
As we get into our old age, we've decided we want to play golf more.
That's right, because that's what old guys do. They play golf. My kids got me a new set of clubs for my birthday, my 70th birthday, so that was nice. And so I need to get my game up a little bit to make that work. Because now I can't make the excuse, well, how am I going to hit that with this club? These clubs are awful. And so now I've got new clubs. So no more excuses.
My clubs are not new. I'm not investing in clubs until I play a little bit more.
That'll be good.
But, I will say, what the great thing, what the real impetus for all of this is, and I'll leave it with this, is Natalie, my stepdaughter, who I, treasure, has started to pick up golf. And so we went out and we played with Natalie and her boyfriend, who's a really good golfer. And that's really what I aim to get to, is me and Tommy against you and Jaker Ford, because he's like a 5 handicap. So maybe someday, but we went out and played, and it's just great to have that bond with her, to be able to go out and play. I took her to the range on Father's Day weekend, and it was a blast. So.
Well, good for you. And that's a good reason. I like that. That's kind of the same thing with me. I used to play, not a lot, but I played and played with guys at the paper and stuff. But then over the years, after we started having kids, it was just like, whew, don't have any time for that. But now I would like to be able to make my game presentable just so I can play with my boys, both of whom are very good golfers.
So look, all the pros who listen to us every week, and I know there's a ton of them around town.
Oh yeah.
Just make sure, if you want to invite us out, we'll be happy to come out.
Yeah, exactly. All those pros listening to us.
I hear we're big with the golf pros and with Knicks fans. Yeah, it's 2 of our
fans.
core.
Yeah. Mariska Hargitay, if you're listening, hey, love the show. Anyway, so from everybody in here and everybody out there, thanks, and we'll see you next time.